Mr. Vineet Nayar is one of the doyens of the Indian IT industry, and his name is synonymous with HCL, and along with it, the founder, Mr. Nadar, and he has been he has had a very interesting life, and he's now a management guru. And unlike other management gurus that I know of, he's the counterpart of Jack Welch, whereas my other management gurus come from academia. So he knows what he is talking about, and with real world experience. Right. So he has been the former CEO of HCL Technologies, and currently is the founder of Sampak Foundation, I think, which keeps him busy right now. And that's my first question to him. But his seminal work, since I'm an academic, is this book on management, where he turned the pyramid in the title itself about employees first and customers second. Management mantra always said the interest of the customers have to be placed first. But then in his book, he talks about why you have to place employees first. And he has got this, the triple E3 mantra, that if you encourage employees, enable employees, and enthuse employees, given everything being constant, there can be a cultural transformation, and your productivity will go through the roof. Right. So that's the broad context of this book, Employees First, Customers Second. It's published by the Harvard Business Press, and there have been a lot of talks on this by Mr. Nayar on YouTube and other places, and this is the mantra that I think he sees as very important, particularly in the context of post-COVID times and the changing work scenarios. Mr. Nayar also serves as senior advisor to the McKinsey Leadership Institute, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and is on the advisory panel of the Global Talent Competitiveness Index, established by the Business School INSEAD and Human Capital Institute. And also is part of the Millions Learning Project led by the ex-Prime Minister of Australia, Ms. Julia Gillard. He is also the founding member of Brookings India, and has been a juror of Harvard Business Review's prestigious McKinsey Prize 2 years in a row. He has been one of India's biggest philanthropists. Fortune magazine chose Mr. Vineet Nayar for its first ever global executive dream team in 2012, which has been described as an all-star leadership that would coalesce and dominate in any industry. Under his leadership, HCL's market cap increased by nearly 6 times and revenues by nearly 5 times, so 600% and the 700% increase. This is in addition to his inclusion in the Elite Thinkers 50 list in 2011-12, a definitive listing of the world's top 50 business thinkers. In 2005, that's when he started his philanthropic arm. He established the Sampak Foundation along with his mother and spouse, intending to enable large-scale innovation in education. This is a brief description, so we'll have a question and answer, a conversation actually, more of I'll ask questions and pick it up on that as the format of this talk. Mr. Nayar, when we do recruiting seminars for students, as I was telling you, we are a liberal arts institution. In addition, people are not aware of what liberal education means. NEP is correcting that. NEP said, that education has to become multidisciplinary and holistic. I've been doing this recruiting seminars, and I've been an evangelist for liberal education for many years now. Go and talk to parents and students. And one of the things that I emphasize that, the skills that we require in the 21st century is to be able to think critically, teamwork, leadership, great communication skills, but also something very critical, that's to have a sense of purpose in life. Somewhere in the Indian educational system, we have lost track of the whole goal of education, that an education should prepare you for life. It's not just for the next job or not just to get good grades. And this is where the sense of purpose is a bit, comes as a surprise to prospective students. They are looking at what will be my first job and what will be my first salary. Right? But that sense of purpose is extremely critical for an education for life. Right? You have achieved tremendous success in your life. and you can't achieve success without having a sense of purpose. Now that you are out of a regular so-called job, what keeps you excited today? What is that higher purpose that you are serving today?
So I think first is that you talked about uh, the reason of our existence, and I'd like to spend a few minutes on that before I go and define my purpose in life. I think the DNA of all 7 billion of us on this planet is unique and different from each other. And there is a reason for it. And the reason for it is that none of us were meant to be identical twins or apes of somebody else. And therefore, if we were meant to be different, then as much time as we spend about what others think about us, we should spend about what we think of ourselves. And the journey of what we think of ourselves can be understood in two parts. Number one is to introspect and understand the reason you are you. You are not Santosh, you are not Vineet, you are not Shivnadar, you are not Narayan Murthy. You are you. And the reason for you to be you is to try and maximize the opportunities you get with the competence and capability you have by sharpening the saw which you can and maximizing the opportunity which you can. It is like a trapeze artist when she's just about to jump and catch a trapeze thrown by somebody else 100 feet away. The idea in her mind is to jump further than anybody else, to catch the trapeze in a more difficult position than anybody else, and to demonstrate to the world that there is only one who can do it at that instance. So the first purpose of our life for all of us is to internally look at ourselves and ask ourselves, what are we going to do with this beautiful mind, with this beautiful body, with this beautiful opportunity, with this beautiful capability, with this beautiful teaching, with the beautiful knowledge? What am I going to do? Maximizing the gains which you make by demonstrating to everybody that you are best in class. That will only come if you do what you feel good about. So if you feel good about finance, you do finance. If you feel good about music, you create music. If you feel good about social entrepreneurship, you create social entrepreneurship. So the first purpose of life is to find the true joy of life, what you like doing, and becoming the bloody best in that. Having done that, very quickly, you will discover that is not enough. And that opens the door to the second part. And the second part, I like to tell you a story that I was, Santosh just talked about Fortune magazine, created a list of, in 2012, top 6 CEOs of the world. Steve Jobs was there, and I don't know how, but my name was part of that executive dream team which Fortune in US created. And New York Times did a huge article, a half-page article on employees first, customer second, and me personally. And I made the mistake of going to my mother with both those articles and told her, look how proud you should be of this son who has achieved so much. I lost my father pretty early in life. So my mother is my father and my mother is everything for me. And she's a school teacher and she tore an English copy page in half. She wrote something on it, put it in an envelope and sent me to New York. I was flying to New York that night. So I was sitting on this Air India flight on the first class seat with a single malt in my hand, opened this envelope, waiting to hear my mother tell me how proud she is of her son and how blessed she feels that I was born to her and not to her neighbor. And there was only one word which was written on that piece of paper. It said enough. And I landed in New York and I called her back and says, Mom, what does this mean? And she says, if you don't understand it, you will understand on your way back. And I would say that is the second thing. There comes a time in life where you have had enough money, if you had enough recognition, you have done the best you can, and you understand that it is not enough. There is something far deeper satisfaction you can achieve by being of value to others. And there is when you discover your true purpose. So, your true purpose and true happiness and true joy of being who you are, of being a human, would come from first recognizing and capitalizing on the potential you have. That's a necessary condition. But after that, dedicating your life to being of value to others. And once you do that, then the purpose of existence comes. So it is true, Santosh, that even when I was young and sitting on the table, which all my young colleagues are sitting right now, this word purpose didn't mean much to me. It means a lot more to young people today than it meant to in my generation. And therefore, the pursuit of money was dominant in my head. Pursuit of success was dominant in my head. That is the reason I did a startup, which became a multi-billion-dollar startup, which was very successful. But the reason of constant unhappiness kept daunting on me. And the true meaning of purpose really came to bear after my mother woke me up with that word enough. And that is the time I would say, discovered myself honestly. And today I think I am happier with myself than I have ever been before. And I think that is the journey every single young person would follow. And if you as an institution are talking about purpose, institutionalizing value about purpose, and teaching people not just about philanthropy and social good, because that's not good enough, but teaching people how to be happy by getting the best out of themselves. And you're absolutely right that we need to move away from rote learning to applied science, and we can talk a little bit more on that. But how to how to train your mind to get the best version of yourself. And once you have done, how to say enough, whether when you are 20, when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50, when a time comes when you say enough and then dedicate your life for the good of others. That is the only way I think human beings need to learn to live in their life.
Great thoughts there, Mr. Nayak. Following it up on that, I would like to ask this question to you. So when you started Sampark Foundation, I know it's in the education space. I'll ask you I'll ask you a few questions a little later on about the organization of philanthropy in the country, especially in the primary education space. But when you started Sampark Foundation, what was it that you were looking at? Essentially, right?
So what happened was that from 2005, when I was the CEO, 2005 to 2013, Sampark Foundation was cutting a lot of check and contributing to philanthropic initiatives or NGO initiatives. That time, my hands were full with HCL Technologies, and my wife was fully into special education. So we thought philanthropy is all about cutting checks. I think it was 2013 when I visited Punjab, and to my horror, I discovered two or three things. Number one, the education standards were very, very poor. Number two, all the money we had given were actually funding the salaries of NGOs rather than impacting the children on the ground. Number three, everybody was telling me that they are in the social sector, but nobody was measuring impact. Nobody was measuring outcomes. Nobody was measuring effectiveness. And therefore, over the last 50 years, the investment in education had doubled or tripled, but the learning outcome of our children had only dropped. It was dramatically dropping over the last 50 years and definitely over the last 5 years. So the design thinking question for us means I collaborated with a professor friend of mine at Harvard Business School and a company called IDEO, which was big on design thinking. The design thinking question in front of us is that how do we reverse this trend for 15, 20 crore children, where the learning outcome has dramatically dropped despite the fact that the investment in education has increased. So what is that catalyst idea which could invert the pyramid and turn the idea on its head within the constraints? So you can't, there is no electricity in classrooms, there is no capability of giving computers to everybody. The teachers in remote villages are unenthusiastic about teaching, untrained, illiterate, they only class 8 pass. So within those constraints of our government education system, what unique idea can you bring in which will spark a catalyst of change? So that is the design thinking which we started empowering on. The second question which we made is, can we using this reach to 2 crore children, right? Can I demonstrate this change experiment at a scale of 2 crore children, not 100 children, not 1,000 children, not 10,000 children, because India is a very large country. So that idea, design thinking got us to, so I visited a lot of villages in Bihar, in Jharkhand, in Chhattisgarh. I was traveling, across the country. And one thing stood out is that irrespective of how poor these people are, how sick these people are, every Saturday they will put 2 bamboos and have an immersive experience in Bollywood. So therefore, can we bring Bollywood to the classroom? So we recreated a new pedagogy where we started teaching maths and English using an audio device with song and dance and a Vidya Balan equivalent voice of Munna Bhai MBPS of Good Morning Mumbai, so Good Morning Children, and a Mary Poppins kind of a Sutradhar in Sutradhar called Sampak Didi. So we put all that together in an audio box, and along with that, many other innovative teaching learning material, and launched it in a big way. That suddenly ignited the classroom. It really sparked off the revolution which created. So today we are in 6 states. We cover 84,000 schools. We cover 1 crore children. And there's a dramatic increase in learning outcomes. So I would say that the choice of education was because my mother is a teacher and my wife is a special education teacher. But for me personally, it is a very large problem for us to solve. And it lent itself to innovative thought. To me, it is very important that I personally, you use the word philanthropist. I'm not a philanthropist. I'm putting my capital behind my ideas to design, think, and transform and change and revolutionize a problem which has not been changed. So I see myself as a problem solver. And education lent itself to a scale. Education gave me an opportunity of applying design thinking, applying technology, applying all the stuff which I had learned for first 25 years of my life to try and see if we can transform the lives of 2 crore children. 1 crore is done, 1 crore more to go. And that is the reason we picked education.
Now, following up on that, I just want to connect it with your book, right? Employees first, customers second, where you place the one who is delivering the service at the forefront. And then if you encourage, enable, and enthuse them, the product is definitely going to be good, given all other things being constant. But in education, the challenge is teachers, right? Education, as you rightly pointed out in philanthropy earlier, or for instance, the government is just cutting checks and it goes as salaries to the NGOs or the teachers, the people working in the NGO, and nothing reaches to the customer out here who is a primary school child, right? What are the learnings and how do you increase the effectiveness of teachers who are working? Sampak Foundation, I believe, works primarily with public schools, state-funded schools in these 6 states that you mentioned. How do you encourage the teachers, to be better versions of themselves, to borrow your word, right, and make a good job as far as learning outcomes goes? Why does it require a Mr. Vineet Nayar to come in from outside and bring these elements in?
Santosh, a fantastic question, and I'm going to give a longish answer because this is the most important thought which I would like to leave behind with all the people in this room. One of the big mistakes with a lot of leaders do is start believing in their own egos that they are the people who make the change. You have the rich list, the Forbes rich list. You have the Economic Times painting their photographs. You have so many people who like those photographs, who like the richness, who like the billions of dollars in front of their name. And little do they understand that the only way that works is because many employees work very hard to make that possible. In HCL transformation journey, as you talked about, we grew 600% in 7 years. HCL transformation journey was based on 3 questions. Number one, what is the core business which we are in? And the core business which any company is in is to create unique, differentiated value or create unique, differentiated experiences for its customers. The second question is, where does this unique, differentiated experience or value get created? And the answer is, it gets created in the interface of the employee and the customer. So if the employee and the customer in that interface called the value zone, the unique differentiation or unique experience is created, then what is the core purpose of existence of the management? That was the third question. And my answer was that the core purpose of existence of the management can be nothing but enthusing, encouraging, enabling those employees in that value zone to create the differentiation or to create the unique experiences for the customer. And that is how the idea called employees first, customer second was born. The reason of existence of management is employees first, and the reason of existence of employees is customer first. But if the management does not treat employees as its number one priority, there is no way that organization is going to be great. And we saw, many stories from many startups in India which collapsed predominantly because the promoters were full of themselves and were not taking care of their employees. And there are many organizations which failed. You must understand, in life, nobody has ever achieved anything alone. But if you enthuse, excite, enable the employees, then you create magic. So HCL transformation journey from almost $1 billion of market cap to $10 billion of market cap, with the same product, the same pricing, the same customers, everything's the same. The only difference is the employees are motivated. So when 2008 recession came in, every single other company was demonstrating a negative growth. And at HCL, we announced a policy of no HCLite left behind. That means we will not get rid of any HCLite. Now, what was the return which employees gave? The employees ensured that HCL was one of the unique companies in the peak of recession which did not see a single negative quarter growth. So we kept on growing. And how does that happen? How does that magic happen? Is because employees make that magic happen. Now, once you understand that, at the center of every value zone is a human being. It is not a strategy. It is not a price. It is not your CEO great thinking. It is not a technology. It is a human being. And the innovation is around the human being. If you take the education and ask the same questions, what is the core business of education? The core business of education is to improve learning outcome. That is the core business of education. Where does learning take place? The learning takes place in the classroom, in the interface of the teacher and the child. Who creates this learning outcome? The teacher. So therefore, what should the business of any government employee, educator, philanthropist, whatever you call them, it can be nothing but enthusing, encouraging, enabling the teacher to create the differentiated value. And that is exactly what Sampark does. So we have training programs where Sampark Didi becomes an associate teacher. It helps the teacher. A teacher can't speak English. Sampark Didi speaks English through the audio platform. So while the child is learning, the teacher is also learning. And then we respect Anita ji, Sapna ji, we respect them, we motivate them, we inspire them in our training program. We help them identify Sampark Didi within themselves. And we ignite the aspiration within them to try and drive the learning outcome. And when the learning outcome changes, we pass on the entire credit to them. And in that, we have been able to motivate 3 lakh teachers who work with us extensively and are joined hands with us. So we do not run any program directly with children ever. All our programs are only through these 3 lakh teachers. So enthuse, encourage, enable those teachers, and magic will happen. So therefore, when you are personally looking at your life, you must understand that the word manager is a French word which is breaking a horse into submission. So do you want to be managed? If you don't want to be managed, when you get into a leadership position, why do you use the word manager for yourself? You want to be a leader. Leader is somebody who inspires confidence in others, who inspires others to do stuff they have not done before. And that is what you need to do, whether you are in for-profit, whether you are in philanthropy, as long as you behave like a leader in the business of inspiring others to do stuff which they have never ever imagined they can do, you will be a leader. And that is the purpose of your existence. Whether you're in education or wherever you are, you will succeed. If you can inspire people to do stuff which they have never imagined they can do on their own, you will succeed. Nobody can hold you back.
No, that comes to my next question. This is about your 2017 talk, where you went to the lion's den, so to speak, the HR conference of, All India Management Association, and told them HR will be dead by 2020. Right? And you gave various reasons about the current generation wanting non-hierarchical system setups. There are 2 kinds of personal identities that everyone has. There's an open identity, there's a digital identity, and so on. Technology being changing, and the workplace where employees feel comfortable to work from, that's going to be the norm instead of forcing everyone to come to a central location and working on it. Right? How do you see this cultural transformation playing out, given that the corona pandemic is through us and everyone has made work from home, or your second prediction has come alive? It's become very much true. That's, gave the example of Kodak where everyone saw it becoming obsolete, but nobody did anything about it. Do you see the transformation happening in the workspace right now? What should our students look forward to in their work lives, from next year onwards, let's say?
Right. So I was talking to a group of partners at McKinsey, so the prediction I made to them is identical to what I made in 2017 on HR. Is I told them that consulting is going to die pretty quickly. The reason I made the prediction on HR being dead is I could see that people respect HR less and less with each passing day. And the journey had started with my teenager son and daughter. My parents were very clear what I needed to do. And because they were very clear on what I needed to do, I ended up doing what they needed to do. So if you ask me, why did I do engineering? I did because my parents wanted me to do engineering. Why did I do my MBA? Because my parents wanted to do MBA. That was my generation. I tried that with my daughter and son. And I was paid back with interest that competent, in short, buzz off, right? So if my son and daughter are telling me to buzz off, why would my employees not tell me to buzz off if I tell them what needs to be done? And when I started looking at functions which were doing it, HR was one of the functions which were not creating value for the employees, but only monitoring them, managing them, appraisal, all that crap, which adds no value and is there just to keep busy. I mean, it appeared to be an organization which is not creating value. And the reason I felt pained by it is because they are the only people who are trained to think on behalf of a human being. They are extensively trained to understand the human mind. They're trained to motivate a human mind. They're trained to inspire a human mind. And yet they are being countered. They're behaving like finance people, understanding who's to sack, what 8% or 6% or 10% salary increase to be. But they are doing all the menial work despite the fact that they have been trained to inspire confidence, to inspire people, to create a culture which does not exist. And that is the reason I made that prediction. I make that prediction that whenever you step out of college and are joining an industry, you ask fundamentally the same question in terms of what value is this role creating for the end customer. If you are not convinced that it is creating value, you must understand that role is going to die. Now, for example, going to office was not creating value for anybody. We were going because somebody wanted to see on a camera that he has 100 people. So a boss will walk in, he will see 100 people on a floor, he will feel very good. He will feel like an elephant. Actually, most bosses are like a mouse, right? But they feel like an elephant when they walk in with all these rows of cows and goats which are lined up. They feel good. Now, fortunately, because of coronavirus, there is no room for them to walk up, and the mouse is now finally behaving like a mouse, right? Because everybody has gone into their respective dens and have understood that they are the tigers they are. So that is the reason when people went back home, they had time to reflect. They had time not to be of the same, I would say, cowshed or part of the same elephant courtyard. And therefore, they started thinking differently. They started behaving differently. They said, I'm unique, I'm alone, I can be different. And when that differentiation started coming in, commodity in an employee went away. Innovation started coming in, differentiation started coming in. And there is where the bosses truly started struggling. So if I were to predict going forward, I would believe that the industrial age became very successful because of machines, processes, and aligning people in rows and columns. But now we are in an innovation age. And therefore, leaders will have to learn to get the best from their employees on per unit of hour, more innovation per unit of hour rather than more productivity per unit of hour. And that would only happen if the management and leaders are focused on value creation, not in office and rows and columns, but how can I inspire people to create more innovation, more outcomes. So the dramatic change which is going to happen is we are going to monitor employees less. We're going to inspire employees more. We're going to measure employees less. We're going to give them confidence to create innovative ideas which are disruptive in nature. We're going to ask them to measure less, experiment more. And we are going to ask our leaders not how many people in what pyramid structures and what salary they gave, but how many unique ideas and unique concepts they brought to the table, which dramatically changed the advent of the company. So those are the questions which will become relevant for tomorrow, irrespective of where the employee works.
That comes to the follow-up question. What kind of jobs will be relevant tomorrow?
I think that's that's an important question. You must understand that in the industrial age, I call them the most important jobs were the vomit jobs. Vomit jobs were you learn something, you come to office and you vomit. So therefore, if you know a manual by the back of your head, you come and vomit. If you know how to pull a plug, you're constantly pulling a plug. If you know how to do an Excel sheet, you will do an Excel sheet. So those kind of jobs were vomit jobs, and a lot of organizations still have vomit jobs because we still have managers and we have less leaders. Those vomit jobs are being taken over by bots in a fairly fast clip way. Artificial intelligence is coming in way, bots is coming in way, data analytics is coming way. So and search capability is coming in way, including in surgery. So those what I call the vomit jobs are going to go away. Once the vomit jobs goes away, then it opens a Pandora's concept in terms of what will come. What will come is you must understand the entire industrial age was about standardization. From standardization, we are going to go back to customization. Now, from the industrial age was one idea, scale it. Here it will be a million ideas in million points. So therefore, innovation and applied knowledge is going to be very critical. So therefore, if you are learning something in the university, it is not the knowledge, but how to apply it. And that's the reason, 20, 30 years ago, case study methodology of teaching started coming in. So if case study methodology of teaching you are involved in, make sure you stretch your mind quite a lot and try and apply the knowledge you have by coming up with ridiculous ideas and ridiculous suggestions. Let me give you an example here because this is an important point, and this is something you may have already heard, but I want to say it because I love it. There is a potato, there is a chai is there, and there is an egg. And when you see all three of them, you come to a conclusion that potato is hard and the chai is virtually useless and slip out of your hand, and the egg will break as soon as you press it. You put them into boiling water, which is a crisis situation, and suddenly the potato becomes soft, the egg becomes hard, and the chai completely transforms itself to a completely new culture. So you must understand that you are right now those three commodities, but the moment we put you into water, your text, you have a choice of being a potato, being a chai, or being an egg. You have a choice. So most of us, unfortunately, because we do not put in the effort in our own learning, in our applying our thought, applying our knowledge, become potatoes. And because we become potatoes, we have all these CEOs and managers who run short over us. But if we decide that we want to be an egg or we want to be a chai, which is transformative, there is no potato who can overrule you. There is no manager who can come on top of you. So that choice exists, and that choice exists by applying your mind, and that is about applying knowledge. Therefore, the skill and the jobs which will be existing tomorrow will be the same jobs which exist today, but you will succeed only if you're applying knowledge to the job. So in accounts, applied knowledge, data analytics. In marketing, applied data analytics and heuristic prediction of what's going to happen. In technology, ability to be able to predict and ability to be able to predict before things happen. In sales, the ability to be able to understand the mind of a man who you are going to present to, and how do you convince him based on some mind map which you do. So the ability of applying that knowledge to gain relevance is what will succeed, rather than a new industry opening up.
I think with that question, you answered a lot of questions that came from the audience, and I don't need to repeat. But there is one important question, I think, from one of our students, which has got to do with your opening remarks about purpose. And this is, I think, very relevant. And she asks, how do you? This is Sanjana Choradia. How do you recognize what is it that you truly want to do? The world is always telling you different things, and there is this constant fear of failure. How does one think clearly with all this fear of failure? I pursue something that's my passion, but then, people are telling you that's not the right way to go. And, there have been more failures in that area than anything else. How does one think clearly with all this pressure?
Sanjana, it's a great question. A very, very close friend of mine was a doctor, means my best buddy. And so all the patients around him, he was the first responder, and he was treating all of us on Corona, all that stuff. He was a fantastic friend, and obviously he was curing Corona all around him. And he constantly used to say, Vineet, when it happens, it will happen. So therefore, why fear before it happens? Unfortunately, because of his grabbing Corona from a patient, he died about 2 weeks ago. He was young. He was fantastic. And the last conversation I had with him, he was at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, was the same. We need whatever has to happen will happen. Why think about it before it happens? The way I have dealt with life, Sanjana, is I have strongly believed that the future is uncertain for all of us. When you toss a coin, there is a 50% chance it will land on head, but it should have landed on tail, or it will land on tail when it should have landed on head. So the difference between success and failure is not increasing the probability, because nobody can. There is so much uncertainty in life. That serendipity, some opportunities you will get which you don't deserve, and some opportunities you will get despite the fact that you deserve them. The interesting part is the speed at which you toss the coin again. So when the coin lands on the wrong head, do you pick up the coin and toss it immediately? And there is where I came up with this philosophy. The philosophy is that if you start shutting the doors to stuff you don't want to do, the doors which you want to do will start opening up. Throughout my life, I never ever knew what is the purpose of my life. Throughout my life, I never knew what the next 1 year or 5 years would do. Even today, if you ask me, Vineet, what will happen by 2025? I don't know how many of you are aware. I have already announced that 2025 Sampark Foundation will cease to exist. We will shut it down. Because I always believe in defining end dates for things. So once you shut the door, you start opening the door. It says, holy shit, Vineet, you have already announced that Sampark Foundation will not be there in 2025, or you would not. For example, when I became the CEO of HCL, I clearly said 7 years and no more. The end date was clearly announced by me and saying 7 years and no more. I want to do something new every 7 years. So I would believe that once you shut the door on what you don't want to do and put yourself in the zone of uncertainty, then this question you're asking is fear of failure will not exist, predominantly because you've already shut the door on not failing. So you are already put yourself there. So then this question will not come, what happened? Because you're not in the audience anymore. The curtain has closed. You're not performing in front of the audience. The moment you stop performing in front of the audience and close this curtain because you don't care, this whole question of fear of failure will go away. You have one lifetime. You have one this beautiful mind. You have this beautiful DNA. You have this beautiful, body which God has given to you. You are responsible for it, not the audience member. So don't perform for the audience, perform for yourself. And that you do by shutting the curtain. By shutting the curtain and doing the stuff you want to do. And the only way to do the stuff is not knowing what you want to do, because nobody knows. Stop doing the stuff you don't want to do. And the moment you stop doing the stuff you don't want to do, the curtains will open on stuff which will really, it will surprise you of how the life. And this is exactly the way it has happened with me. I have always resigned. When I did a startup in 1992, I resigned. Unfortunately, I was recently married with a sweetheart who I chased in school. I had very little money. At the same time, I was very clear what the job I was doing was not good. So I quit without having money, recently married, not knowing what to do, but I was very clear, I don't want to do what I was doing. And that resulted into creation of Comnet, which is a startup, which went up to a multi-billion-dollar company. Now, had I not taken that risk at that time, and that risk did not come from my imagination of what Comnet will be. It came from my decision of I do not want to do this shit, which I am doing. And once I closed the door on that shit, a new thing opened up and saying, okay, Vineet, what are you going to do? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? So then the risk was not a risk. And then like a dog, you sniff your way through and magic happens. But shut the curtain. Don't perform for the audience.
Brilliant answer. Brilliant. Mr. Nair, I think we have run out of time. But we would love to continue this conversation. But I would like to invite you to the campus whenever you come in. Just make it do that and interact with the students directly. I would like to thank you for giving us the time, and see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, and all of you stay safe and do justice to this beautiful. If I have a minute more.
Yeah, please.
Do an exercise for me, for all the people who are listening. If you like what I said, do an exercise for me. Tonight, when you reach your room, look in a mirror and ask yourself one question. So what are you going to do with this beautiful self? And then ask again, what are you going to do with this beautiful self? And then ask the third time, what are you going to do with the beautiful self? And then sleep. When you wake up in the morning, you will have the answer. That is my promise. Take care, wish you the very best, and stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you.